The storm had only started to roll over the quiet town when 7-year-old Aiden burst out of the old apartment building barefoot, his small chest heaving, his cheeks wet with tears. The sky cracked with thunder as he stumbled down the pavement, clutching a ripped backpack that bounced uselessly against his side. Every breath escaped him in a choked sob, and every step felt like it could break him. Yet he kept running. He had to. His mama was still inside, and they were hurting her. The wind whipped across his face, but he didn't dare look back, not at the broken window, not at the shadow of the men who had dragged his mother by the hair. He sprinted toward the only place he'd ever seen in town where men looked strong enough, loud enough, fearless enough to stand up to monsters. The biker bar. If you're watching this and you believe in kindness, bravery, and second chances, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps stories like this reach more hearts. Aiden reached the gravel lot, his feet blistered and bleeding, his throat raw from crying. The rumble of engines always scared him before, but now the sound felt like salvation. A group of leather-clad bikers stood around their motorcycles, massive machines gleaming beneath the flickering neon light of the bar sign, when they saw the child collapse onto his knees, trembling. Their leader, a broad man known as Bear because of his thick beard and towering frame, stepped forward. He saw the bruises on the boy's arms, the marks of fingers wrapped too tightly around small wrists, and he immediately understood what kind of terror drove a child to run across town alone. The bikers exchanged glances, something cold and fierce igniting inside them. They had all lived lives touched by violence, by injustice, by the cruelty of men who thought they were untouchable. And none of them could ever resist the cry of someone helpless, especially a child pleading for his mother's life. They didn't waste a single breath. Engines roared like thunder, and Aiden, barely conscious, was lifted gently onto one of the bikes, wrapped in the warmth of a leather jacket. The convoy tore through the streets, lights blazing, their wheels spitting sparks as they surged toward the old apartment building he pointed toward with shaking hands. The closer they came, the more Bear felt the old anger rising. He remembered the years when he himself had been powerless, when he watched people he loved suffer because no one had come. He vowed silently that this child would not live that same grief. The building loomed like a broken skeleton against the angry sky. Before the bikes even fully stopped, the men sprinted up the stained stairway, their boots echoing through the dim hall. The apartment door was half open, hanging crookedly off its hinges. Inside, the scene froze their blood. Furniture overturned, shattered glass across the floor, the sound of a woman coughing weakly from the corner. 3 men towered over her, men with cold eyes and clenched fists, unbothered by the destruction they caused. Aiden's mother, Lily, curled on the floor, her arms wrapped around herself, her face bruised and streaked with tears, trembling as if trying to become invisible. The moment Bear stepped inside, everything shifted. The men turned, sneering, clearly unaware of the storm they had just invited into the room. But the bikers weren't there to talk. They weren't there to negotiate. They were there because a child had run barefoot across town to save the only person who ever loved him, and these men needed to understand what it meant to cross that line. The room erupted in chaos as the bikers charged forward. It wasn't pretty and it wasn't quiet. The walls shook, fists crashed into bone, and the men who had moments earlier felt so powerful now found themselves scrambling, panicking, begging for mercy they never offered to the woman cowering on the floor. When it was over, the apartment was silent except for the heavy breathing of the bikers and the soft cries of Lily as Bear gently knelt beside her. For a moment she flinched, expecting more pain. But when she saw Aiden peeking around Bear's arm, she broke completely. She reached for her boy, holding him as if he were the only thing tethering her to life. The bikers stood silently around them, their rage replaced with something far softer. A deep ache, a familiar pain, the quiet understanding of people who had once been broken too. Bear called an ambulance and waited with mother and son until help arrived. But when the medics offered to take Aiden to a shelter until the investigation was complete, Bear put a hand on the boy's shoulder and said they would handle it. No boy who ran barefoot to save his mother deserved to end up in a cold social services office. Lily nodded weakly, tears streaking her cheeks. She had never expected kindness from strangers, but these men, rough, tattooed, intimidating, treated her with more humanity than anyone had in years. The bikers arranged for Lily and Aiden to stay at one of their safe houses, a small cabin tucked deep in the woods owned by one of the older members who barely used it anymore. The air smelled of pine and wet soil, and for the first time in a long time, Lily could sleep without fear. Aiden stuck close to her, but he slowly grew comfortable around the bikers, following them around as they repaired bikes, grilled food, or played cards. He watched them with wide eyes, observing the way they laughed loudly yet protected each other fiercely, The way they treated Lily with quiet respect, always asking permission before stepping into the cabin or offering help. Days passed, and gradually the bruises faded from Lily's skin, though the ones inside lingered. But something changed, something subtle but powerful. She began to breathe more deeply. She began to hold herself a little higher. Where she once apologized for existing, she now looked people in the eye. And the bikers noticed. Bear especially noticed the way the cold fear in her gaze slowly thawed. He never said a word about the night they found her. He never pressed her for details. He simply made sure she and her son had what they needed, that they were safe, that they felt human again. One afternoon, Aiden asked Bear if he could learn how to fix a motorcycle, his small voice timid but hopeful. Bear's gruff face softened as he lifted the boy onto a workbench and began teaching him the names of the parts, the purposes of the tools. Aiden listened with rapt attention. Lily watched from the porch, her heart swelling with a feeling she hadn't allowed herself in years: hope. Bear didn't treat Aiden like a burden or a scared child. He treated him like someone capable, someone worthy of time and patience. It was something Aiden had never truly known before. Weeks turned into months as the case against the abusers moved forward. The bikers provided testimony, security footage they had installed in the area long before, and even character statements for Lily. At every court appearance, Bear and several members stood behind her, an unmovable wall of support. The men who hurt her were sentenced harshly, and when the verdict was read aloud, Lily broke into silent tears, the years of fear draining out of her at once. With the danger gone, Bear suggested helping Lily find a fresh start. They found her a small home near town, one with a bright kitchen and a fenced yard for Aiden to play in. The bikers helped paint the walls, fix the porch steps, and carry in new furniture. It wasn't charity to them, it was what family did. And whether Lily realized it or not, they already considered her one of their own. Over time, Lily built a new life. She found work at a local bakery, where her warm smile and gentle nature quickly won hearts. Aiden blossomed in school, happier and more confident than ever. Bear and the bikers visited often, sometimes bringing groceries, sometimes bringing motorcycle parts for Aiden, and sometimes just sitting on the porch, drinking coffee and enjoying the peacefulness of a life far removed from violence. But the most beautiful part of the journey was watching Lily heal. Trauma leaves a mark, but so does kindness. There were days she still shook, days she still cried in private. But now she had people to call, people who understood how to sit silently beside her while the storm passed. Bear especially remained a steady presence, never pushing, never expecting anything in return. Over time, Lily found comfort in his company, admiring the gentle soul hidden beneath the rough exterior. And though neither spoke of it, there was something growing between them, something delicate yet undeniable, like a flower pushing through cracked concrete. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees and cast the town in golden haze, Aiden walked over to Bear with a shy smile. He handed him a drawing he made at school. It was of a big motorcycle, a cabin in the woods, a woman standing in the middle, and a small boy holding the hand of a man with a beard. Bear held the drawing for a long time, something tightening in his chest. For the first time in his life, someone saw him as more than a biker, more than a man who'd made mistakes. He was part of someone's story. Someone good. Life didn't become perfect overnight. Healing isn't a straight line. But the difference now was that Lily and Aiden never had to walk that path alone. They had a community that lifted them, protected them, and believed in them. And for Bear and the bikers, helping Lily and Aiden wasn't a one-time act of revenge. It was the beginning of a bond that changed all of them for the better. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps more people find these powerful stories of courage, kindness, and second chances. In the end, what began as a night filled with violence and terror transformed into a journey of healing and hope. A child's desperate run into the storm led him not only to save his mother, but to a new family, one built not by blood, but by loyalty, compassion, and the unbreakable promise that no one should face their battles alone. And sometimes, the most unexpected people, men who looked intimidating, rough, even dangerous, ended up being the ones with the biggest hearts, proving that heroes come in many forms.